Okay, so I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine the entire world coming to an end. Not in your lifetime, hopefully, but one day. How do you picture it? Some people imagine everything burning up in a giant ball of fire. Other people imagine everything slowly freezing into ice. Now, here is the strange part. There is a poem in your class 10th book, only 9 lines long, that talks about exactly this. It is called Fire and Ice, written by Robert Frost. And the biggest secret about this poem, the thing most students completely miss, is that it is not really about the world at all. It is about you. It is about the feelings sitting inside your own heart right now. So, in this video, we are going to go through this poem slowly and completely. I'm going to explain every single line in the simplest words possible, even if your English is not very strong, because that is exactly who I make these videos for. By the end, you will understand what fire and ice really mean. You will know the theme, the tone, the poetic devices, and the rhyme scheme. And most importantly, you will know how to write answers that actually score full marks in your board exam. Nothing left out. If you find this helpful as we go, just gently tap that like button. It is a small thing, but it generally helps this video reach other students who are struggling with the same chapter. Alright, let's get into it. Before we touch the poem, let's quickly meet the man who wrote it because it helps you understand his style. Robert Frost was an American poet who lived from 1874 to 1963. He is one of the most famous poets in the English language. Now, here is what makes Frost special, and you can actually write this in your exam. Frost wrote using very simple, everyday words. He did not use big, difficult, showy vocabulary. He wrote the way ordinary people talk. And this is the most important part. Underneath those simple words, he always hid a very deep and serious meaning. So, a Frost poem is like a calm lake. On the surface, it looks plain and easy, but if you look underneath, it is surprisingly deep. Fire and Ice is the perfect example of this. 9 short lines, tiny words, and yet it is talking about the destruction of the whole world and the darkness inside human beings. Keep that idea in your head as we read, because it is the key to the whole poem. Now let's understand the situation of the poem in plain words. I want you to open your textbook and keep the poem in front of you as I explain, because I'm not going to read the whole poem out, but I'm going to walk you through every idea in it. Frost begins by telling us that people have two different beliefs about how the world will finally end. One group of people say the world will end in fire, everything will burn. The second group says no, the whole world will end in ice, everything will freeze. So, right at the start, Frost places two opposite ideas in front of us: fire on one side, ice on the other. Two ways to die, two ways for everything to be destroyed. Then Frost does something interesting. He gives his own opinion. He says that from what he has felt of desire in his own life, he agrees with the people who believe in fire. Now stop right there, because this word desire is the first big clue. Frost is quietly telling us that fire is connected to desire. He is not talking about real flames, he is talking about a feeling. And then comes the final turn. Frost says that if the world had to be destroyed a second time, if it had to perish twice, he knows enough about hatred to say that ice would also be enough to destroy it. That word, suffice, simply means to be enough. So, he is saying ice too would do the job. And here is clue number 2. He connects ice to hatred. So now the whole hidden structure of the poem is out in the open. Fire means desire, ice means hatred. That is the real poem hiding under the surface. If you appreciate this type of content, gently tap that like button. Let me quickly clear up the few words that trouble students in this poem, because if you do not know these, the poem feels confusing. There are really only a handful. The word desire means a very strong wish or craving to have something. When you want something so badly that it burns inside you, that is desire. The word perish means to die or to be destroyed completely. So when Frost says the world would perish twice, he means it would be destroyed twice. The word suffice means to be enough, to be sufficient. And the word favor in the line about those who favor fire just means to support or to prefer. So the people who favor fire are the people who take the side of fire. That is it. Four small words, and now the poem is fully open to you. Now let's go deep into the first symbol, fire. When Frost says fire, he is using it as a symbol. A symbol is when one thing stands for another bigger idea. Fire here stands for desire. But desire is a wide word, so let me break it down into the feelings it includes. Because your examiner wants you to explain this. Fire stands for greed, the endless hunger to have more and more and more, never being satisfied. It stands for lust, uncontrolled wanting. It stands for jealousy, anger, and burning passion. Think about the things people do when these feelings take over. People fight, people cheat, people go to war, people hurt the ones they love. All of that is the fire of desire. And here is a beautiful way to remember it. Think about how real fire behaves. Fire is hot, fire spreads fast, fire is wild and hard to control, and fire consumes. It eats up everything in its path and leaves nothing behind. Now, look at human desire. It is exactly the same. When greed or anger takes hold of a person, it spreads fast. It is hard to control and it can burn a person's life, their family, even a whole nation, right down to the ground. So, fire is the perfect symbol for desire. That connection between how fire behaves and how desire behaves is a fantastic point to write in a long answer. Let me give you a simple example from real life so it sticks. Think of two countries going to war over land or power. Nobody actually needs that much land. It is the burning desire for more, the greed that starts the fire. And once it starts, it destroys cities, families, generations. That is fire, the way frost means it. Now, the second symbol, ice. Ice stands for hatred, but not the loud, shouting kind of hatred. Frost means the cold kind. Ice stands for coldness of the heart. Indifference, which means simply not caring about others at all. Rigidity, which means being hard and unbending, and insensitivity. It is the feeling of looking at another human being who is suffering and feeling absolutely nothing. And again, think about how real ice behaves because it is the same trick. Ice is cold, ice is slow. Ice does not burn you in 1 second like fire. Instead, it freezes things quietly, bit by bit, but given enough time, ice kills just as surely as fire does. A person left out in the freezing cold dies just as truly as a person in a fire. So, Frost is making a chilling point. Hatred may be slower and quieter than desire, but it is every bit as deadly. Cold indifference destroys the world just as completely as hot desire. Here is a real life example for this one. Imagine people who see others suffering, poor, hungry, treated unfairly, and they simply turn away and feel nothing. That coldness, that not caring, slowly rots a society from the inside. No explosion, no fire, just a slow freeze. That is the ice Frost is warning us about. Quick break. If you want this entire story neatly written in easy points that you can revise the night before your exam, I've made a free notes PDF. The link is in the description. Grab it because it will save your time. Now back to the story. Now, a very common question: which one does Frost think is worse? Read the poem carefully and you will see he does something clever. He first says he sides with fire because he has tasted desire. He believes desire, the fire, is powerful enough to end the world. So his first choice is fire. But then he does not stop there. He adds that even if the world had to be destroyed a second time, hatred, the ice, would also be enough. So think about what he is really saying. He is saying both of these are capable of ending everything. Fire can do it, and ice can do it too. Neither one is safe, neither one is small. In just a few words, Frost puts desire and hatred on the same level of danger. That balance, that idea that both emotions are equally destructive, is the heart of the poem. If a question asks you which is more destructive, the best answer is to explain that Frost presents fire as his first choice, but shows that ice is just as capable of total destruction. So let's pull it all together. What is Frost really trying to tell us? This is the theme, and this is where a top answer separates itself from an average one. Frost is giving us a warning. He is saying that forces which can destroy our world are not asteroids, not monsters, not something from outer space. The real danger is inside us. It is our own emotions, our own greed and desire, the fire, and our own hatred and coldness, the ice. Think about how powerful that idea is. A short, simple poem is telling you that human beings carry inside their own hearts the power to destroy everything. And the poem is quietly asking us to control these feelings before they control us. That is the deeper message. The end of the world is not really about the planet, it is about what happens when human emotions are allowed to run wild. When you write this in your exam, say it clearly. The poem warns that unchecked human emotions, desire, and hatred are powerful enough to destroy humanity, and so we must learn to control them. Now, let's talk about tone because examiners love asking about tone, and most students have no idea what to say. Tone simply means the mood or the attitude of the poet. The way his voice sounds in this poem, the tone is calm, thoughtful, and slightly ironic. Here is why that matters. Frost is talking about the end of the whole world. That is a huge, terrifying subject. You would expect the poet to sound scared or dramatic or emotional, but he does not. He talks about it in a relaxed, almost casual way, like he is chatting about the weather, and that calmness is deliberate. When someone talks about something horrifying in a calm voice, it actually makes it feel more serious, more chilling. That gap between the huge subject and the calm voice is called irony. So, in your answer, you can write the tone is calm and ironic, and this calmness makes the warning even more powerful. Now, the poetic devices. This is almost guaranteed to come up, so let me give you each one clearly with an example so you can just lift these in your answer. First and most important, symbolism. Symbolism is when one thing stands for a deeper idea. Here, fire is a symbol for desire and greed, and ice is a symbol for hatred and coolness. This is the main device of the whole poem, so always mention it first. Second, contrast, also called juxtaposition. This is when two opposite things are placed side by side. Fire and ice are complete opposites, hot and cold, and Frost places them right to each other throughout the poem. That contrast makes each one stand out more sharply. Third, irony. As I said, talking about the destruction of the world in such a calm, light tone is ironic and it deepens the impact. Fourth, imagery. Imagery is language that creates a picture in your mind. The moment Frost says fire and ice, you can instantly see them. That is strong imagery. And fifth, you can mention alliteration and assonance, which are about the sound of the words, the repetition of similar sounds that makes the poem flow smoothly. When read aloud, you do not need to go deep here, just naming them shows the examiner you know your devices. Now, the structure and the rhyme scheme, which is a favorite 1 mark and 2 mark question. The poem is very short, only 9 lines, and it is written as a single stanza. The rhyme scheme is A B A B A A B C B C B. An easy way to remember it is as ABA, ABC, and BCB. But do not just write the letters, add the smart point that gets you the extra mark. Notice how the rhyming words for fire and ice keep repeating and crossing over each other throughout these 9 lines. The sounds are woven together, and that weaving of the rhymes mirrors the way the two ideas, desire and hatred, are tied together in their power to destroy. So, the very structure of the poem supports its meaning. Write that, and your examiner knows you truly understand the poem and not just memorized it. Alright, this is the part that gets you marks. So, pay close attention. Let me show you how to actually answer the common questions. If you get a short question like, what do fire and ice symbolize? Keep it tight and complete. Say, fire symbolizes desire, greed and passion, while ice symbolizes hatred, coldness, and indifference. Both stand for destructive human emotions. That one sentence covers the full mark. If you get why the poet favors fire, answer because he has personally experienced the force of desire and he believes its burning, consuming nature is strong enough to destroy the world. Now, for a long 5 mark answer, here is the structure I want you to follow every time. Start with a one line opening that directly answers the question. Then explain the two symbols clearly. Fire is desire, ice is hatred. Then give the central message that human emotions can destroy the world and must be controlled. Then add depth by mentioning a device like symbolism or contrast and the rhyme scheme, and finish with a short closing line. If you follow that order, opening, symbols, message, device, closing, you will have a complete top scoring answer every time. And let me warn you about the most common mistake. Do not write that the poem is only about the planet physically ending in fire or ice. That is a surface answer and it loses marks. Always take it deeper to human emotions. That is the difference between an average answer and a full marks answer. Let's quickly recap everything so it locks into your memory. Fire and Ice is a 9 line poem by Robert Frost. Fire is a symbol for desire and greed. Ice is a symbol for hatred and coldness. Frost says fire could end the world, but ice would be just as capable. The theme is that human emotions are powerful enough to destroy us, so we must control them. The tone is calm and ironic. The main devices are symbolism, contrast, irony, and imagery. And the rhyme scheme is ABA, ABC, BCB. If you remember just those points, you can answer any question on this poem with confidence. So, the next time you read these 9 tiny lines, I hope you do not just see fire and ice. I hope you see what Frost really wanted you to see, which is the two feelings inside every human being that, if left uncontrolled, can burn down or freeze over an entire world. Here is a question worth thinking about, and it can come up in a smart exam paper. Out of all the things in the world, why did Frost choose fire and ice? Why not say water and stone, or light and darkness? The answer tells you how carefully this poem is built. Fire and ice are the two most powerful opposites every single human being has felt. You have felt the heat of wanting something badly, and you have felt the cold of not caring or of a grudge that will not melt. So, Frost picks two things that are first, complete opposites, and second, feelings we all personally know. That is why the poem hits home for everyone who reads it. There is also a lovely detail here. Fire and ice are opposites, yet frost shows that they do the same job destruction. Two things that could not be more different end up in the same place. That is a clever, almost shocking idea, and it is part of why such a short poem stays in people's minds for a lifetime. Now, let me make this poem real for you because once you see it in your own life, you will never forget it, and you can even add a personal touch in your answer. Think about the fire, the desire in everyday life. It is that feeling, always wanting more. A better phone, more likes on a photo, to beat someone, to have what they have. That constant burning of wanting when it is not controlled makes people jealous, greedy, and unkind. That is the fire Frost is talking about. Alive in ordinary life. And think about the ice, the hatred in everyday life. It is not always shouting and fighting. Often it is cold. It is refusing to speak to someone for years. It is seeing a person in trouble and simply not caring. It is holding a grudge so hard that your heart goes cold. That quiet coldness, Frost warns, is just as damaging as loud anger. So, this 9-line poem, written long ago, is describing feelings you can see around you every single day. That is why it never goes out of date. Let's go a little deeper into the big debate of the poem because a thoughtful answer on this really impresses examiners. Which is worse, the fire of desire or the ice of hatred? You can argue it both ways, and Frost cleverly leaves room for both. On one side, you could say desire is worse because it is active and burning. Desire drives people to grab, to fight, to conquer, to destroy in order to get what they want. It is loud and it moves fast like a wildfire. That is why Frost lists it first and says he holds with fire. But on the other side, you could argue hatred is worse precisely because it is cold and quiet. It does not burn out quickly like a fire. It can sit inside a person or between two groups of people for years and years, freezing everything until it destroys just as completely, only more slowly. Frost's genius is that he does not fully settle the argument. He says fire is his first choice, but ice would also suffice, would also be enough. So he leaves both as equally deadly. When you write about this, present both sides and then give Frost's balanced final view. That shows real understanding. Let me quickly save you from the mistakes that cause students marks on this poem. Mistake number one, writing that the poem is only about the physical world, literally ending in flames or an ice age. That is the surface, and it is not enough. Always take it to human emotions. Mistake number two, mixing up the symbols. Remember it firmly. Fire is desire, ice is hatred, Do not swap them. Mistake number 3, give the rhyme scheme wrong or giving it with no explanation. Learn it as ABA, ABC, BCB and always add why it matters. And mistake number 4, writing a long answer with no structure, just random points. Follow the order I gave you, and your answer will look sharp and score well. Let me give you a few more likely questions with quick answers so nothing surprises you. Question: what is the significance of the title Fire and Ice? Answer: the title names the two symbolic forces of the poem, fire for desire and ice for hatred, and it prepares us for the contrast between these two destructive human emotions. Question: why has Frost written such a short poem? Answer: the shortness itself is powerful. In just 9 lines, Frost delivers a huge warning showing a serious truth does not need many words, and the brevity makes the message sharp and memorable. Question: how is the poem still relevant today? Answer: it is deeply relevant because human greed and hatred still cause wars, cruelty, and destruction in the world, exactly as Frost warned. The poem is a timeless caution to control these emotions. Question: what does the poet want to convey through the poem? Answer: he wants to warn humanity that our own uncontrolled emotions, desire, and hatred are powerful enough to destroy us and that we must keep them in check. Before we finish, here is an easy trick to lock this poem into your memory for the exam. Just remember two words with two meanings and one code. Fire equals desire, ice equals hatred, and the rhyme code is ABA, ABC, BCB. If you walk into the exam holding just those three things, fire is desire, ice is hatred, and the rhyme scheme, you can rebuild the entire answer from them. Everything else, the theme, the tone, the devices, grows out of those three anchors. That is the whole poem in your pocket. Here is a piece of enrichment that can make your answer stand out. Many scholars believe Frost was inspired partly by an old and famous work, Dante's Inferno, which imagines the different levels of hell. And here is the fascinating detail: in that old vision, the very lowest and worst part of hell is not a place of fire as you might expect, it is a place of ice. The idea being that the coldest sins, betrayal, and hatred are the deepest and most terrible of all. So when Frost places ice alongside fire and says it too would suffice, he is drawing on this powerful old idea that cold hatred can even be more terrible than hot desire. You do not need to write a lot about this, but mentioning that frost is ice echoes the idea of hatred as the deepest evil shows real depth. Let's not forget that this poem is not just for the exam, it carries a lesson for life, and the value based question may ask exactly that. The poem quietly teaches us self control. It warns us to keep our desires in check so greed does not consume us and to keep our hearts warm so hatred does not freeze us. In a single tiny poem, Frost is really giving us a rule for living well. Do not let your wanting burn you up, and do not let your coldness turn you to ice. Choose balance. Choose warmth without greed. If a question asks about what message or value the poem gives for our lives, that is a beautiful way to answer it. Let me leave you with one simple picture that ties the whole poem together. Imagine a house. A house can be destroyed in two ways. It can be burned down in a roaring fire, fast and violent, or it can be left out in the freezing cold for years until the ice cracks it apart, slow and silent. Either way, the house is gone. Now, think of that house as the human world and think of the fire as our desire and the ice as our hatred. Frost is telling us our own emotions are both the fire and the frost that can bring the whole house down. Hold that picture and you hold the poem. Two quick final questions before we wrap. Question: what is the theme of fire and ice in one line? Answer: the poem wants that human emotions, desire, and hatred are powerful enough to destroy the world, so we must control them. Question: why is the poem admired despite being so short? Answer: because it expresses a profound truth about human nature in just 9 simple lines, proving that great ideas do not need many words. Now, right after this poem, in your book comes a much bigger and very powerful chapter: Nelson Mandela and his long walk to freedom. It is about different kind of fire, the fire of a whole people fighting to be free. I've broken that entire chapter down line by line in the next video, and I really think you should watch it next. Just click right here and I will see you over there.